everybody, welcome to January 2024. I'm so excited about this month. I have tons of videos lined up for you guys. This video is going to be all about poor man meals. I have a huge montage of all the poor man meals that I've done, some new ones in the mix as well. So I hope that you guys like it. Let's get started. All right, you guys, to get us started, we're going to be starting off with cheeseburger pasta. So I'm going to need 16 ounces of any kind of noodle that you guys want. I just did these Salentini noodles. They're actually like my favorite, but we don't have them very often, but they are really, really good. I like using elbow macaroni as well, or penne noodles would be good with this meal as well. And then I'm just going to put that off to the side and let that cook. I'm also going to get started on a pound of ground beef, get that nice and cooked through, and then we're just going to drain off any excess grease. I'm going to put that back into my pan, and then I need 1 block of cream cheese and then 16 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese that we're going to add. And then we're just going to slowly mix this together. I'm also going to add some seasonings. I need half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. So now once my seasonings have been added, I'm just going to stir this through, and it works better if your cream cheese is already softened. Mine wasn't terribly softened when I made this, but it just took a little bit of elbow grease and we got it cooked through and made all that cream cheese and cheese melted. I'm also going to add 3/4 cup of milk, and I'm going to slowly stir that together, getting that nice and creamy, and by then your noodles should be done. So I didn't add all of my noodles because I just wanted to make sure, since these are like bigger pasta noodles, that it was going to be all like enough, I guess I should say. I didn't want to add too many noodles to it and it not be super cheesy. Baba, do you like your pasta? Yeah. What about you? Do you like your pasta?
Mm-hmm. Look at my bowl. It's already empty. A little bit.
What do you think? You like your pasta?
Mm-hmm.
You like your fruit too?
That's really good.
Hey, baby.
Mm-hmm.
You really like it. Good deal.
Cheesy.
Juicy, good. Okay, up next is one of my favorite things to make. I love having shepherd's pie. It's so easy to make. My kids end up loving it so much, and so does my husband. And it's very budget friendly, so I just need 1 can of tomato soup, and then I just did like a 12-ounce bag of frozen vegetables, and I place that in there. A lot of times I'll do 2 cans of green beans. Sometimes I'll do 1 can of green beans, 1 can of corn. It kind of just depends what I have. A lot of times I just try to get rid of those vegetables that I have on hand. And then I'm going to get started on potatoes. I'm just going to be making some mashed potatoes. So however you guys usually make mashed potatoes, I did about 6 to 8 different potatoes. I just want to make sure that it's like a good serving size to fill this like 9x13 pan. So usually for my potatoes, I'll add evaporated milk and butter. A lot of times I'll just do milk and butter or some sour cream, but just typically do whatever you guys want to do. And then I'm just going to put that right on top of our tomato soup and mixed vegetables. And then right on top of that, I'm going to put about 1 cup to 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese. A lot of times I will do like a Colby Jack cheese. I actually grew up putting American cheese on this, and I started doing that when I first got married, but my husband was like, no, I don't like that. So I don't do that anymore. But just do whatever type of cheese that you guys prefer. Put this in the oven at 350 for about 30 minutes. And you guys, this is done, and it looks so good. It is just so good, and it's such a great budget meal to have. Next, we're going to be doing sloppy Joe Casserole, and this is a little bit more of a homemade version. There are other versions that you can do, but this one's definitely a little bit more homemade. So we need 1 pound of ground beef, and we're just going to chop that up and get that nice and cooked through. Once that's been cooking for a couple minutes, then we're going to add 1/2 cup of onion to it, and we won't really have to drain off any grease. This meat that I use is a little bit more on the lean side, and those onions are actually going to soak up any excess grease that we have anyways. But if you have more grease, you can definitely drain it. And then we're going to need 1 tablespoon of garlic, giving that a really good stir. Okay, now we're going to be adding 1 can of tomato sauce and 2 cans of diced tomatoes. So you're just going to add those to our pan. And then I'm also going to add 1 can of water from one of those cans that we used. And then about 1/8 of a cup of brown sugar. And then I'm going to give that a good stir. Alright, and then we're also going to be adding 1/4 of a cup of Worcestershire sauce. And then just a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Now we're going to give that another good stir. And then we're going to add 16 ounces of egg noodles, and I am just going to kind of push this down because I want to make sure that those egg noodles get nice and cooked through. So I want to make sure that there's enough water and liquid to cover that. And then I just let this simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then those egg noodles definitely soaked up all of that excess liquid, and those noodles are absolutely perfect now. And that is it. If you want to put some cheese on top of it and call it good, have some garlic bread with this, or some green beans or a salad, that would be lovely. This is a perfect dinner. Now I wanted to share with you a very inexpensive way of making something super sweet and super delicious. So we're going to be making these cake mix cookie bars. So I need 1 box of white cake mix, 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and then 2 eggs beaten. I did not beat them first, but I tried to kind of beat them with a spoon while it was in the bowl, but definitely make sure that they are beaten. And then I'm just going to mix this all together. Okay, now that your mixture is nice and thick, I'm going to add 12 ounces of chocolate chips. My favorite is milk chocolate, so that's what I'm adding. I know a lot of people just do like semi-sweet, but I am a milk chocolate type of a girl. I just love milk chocolate. So get that all mixed through, and in a 9x13 pan, I am just going to lightly grease it, and then I'm going to put these cookies at the very bottom. I just kind of smushed it and made sure it was nice and even. I definitely wanted this to be nice and level, and I'm going to put this in the oven at 350 for about 20 to 25 minutes. This is what it'll come out to. So good. It's cooked in the middle. My kids were like, oh my goodness, Mom, this is so good. They thought it was better than like a regular cookie, so it was a win for this family. The only way to make this even better was to have some ice cream on top. Vanilla ice cream would go perfectly with these cookie bars.
Is it good? What do you think? Better than cookies or better than a cake? Or what do you think? Cookies are better, a cake is better, or this is better? This.
He's just trying to bite.
How was it, Bubba? All right.
Good, you have to wait.
No, she's fine. She wants the biggest bite there. Good stuff.
Good, Jojo.
Good stuff, baby. Nothing but crumbs.
Up next, we're going to be making a chili casserole. So I'm going to need half of an onion. I'm just going to place at the bottom of my soup pan or Dutch oven, whichever you guys use. I like to add bacon grease when I can. So that's what I'm going to be doing to make these onions soften. And then I'm just going to give that a good stir. You can also put in some garlic. I am going to be putting in some green onions. It's just whatever I have on hand. I like to kind of add any type of pepper to make it a little bit more flavorful. So you can use, yellow or orange or red bell peppers, just whatever you guys have on hand or whatever you guys prefer. I'm going to be making this dish with sausage instead of ground beef to just to make it a little bit more on the frugal side. And I really, really like having sausage. So ever since I've been using sausage, which I started about a year ago in my chilies, my husband loves it. He just says it adds so much flavor to it. So I actually prefer it now over ground beef. I'm going to add 1 can of tomato sauce, 1 can of diced tomatoes, and then I'm actually going to end up putting 2 cans of chili beans. I always like to eye my chili beans just to make sure that I'm not adding too much. I usually typically like to have this dish as more of like a low carb meal. So it just kind of depends on if it's really saucy or, if I feel like it needs more beans, then I will add more. And then I like to add chili powder, cumin, a little bit of red pepper flakes, a little bit of garlic powder, and then I'm going to give that another good stir. I would say about all of those were about a teaspoon each. When it comes to my chili powder, I usually add about a tablespoon to my chili. I also will use like packets. Williams packets is my favorite, but if I'm doing homemade, then I will just add those seasonings. I'm just going to put this in a 9x13 pan. And I didn't put all of it because I need room to put my topping, because I'm going to be making some Jiffy Mix, just like how the box says to make it. I just used 1 box, and now I'm just going to place that right on top of our chili, just like that. And then I'm going to bake this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. I want to make sure that cornbread mix gets nice and cooked through. So that's really all that we're doing here, is making sure that cornbread mix is cooked. And look at this. So delicious. I love having cornbread with chili, and this is just even better, having it right on top. And then we put some cheese and sour cream right on top of that. So good. A delicious and hearty meal. Okay, now we're going to be making one of my favorite poor man meals to ever make. I absolutely love this meal. It's called S.O.S. Usually you would make it with ground beef, and I'm using sausage. And so I ground up that sausage, and now I'm just adding a 1/4 cup of flour. I'm just going to mix that through. I just add flour until like there's no more grease left. I don't know, that way it just makes a little bit more. So I just keep adding the flour until all of it is soaked up in that flour. And then I used 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, and it was taking me forever to get out of there. I don't know, it's like some containers, they just plop right out, and some it just, it's hard to get out. Once I go ahead and get all that out, I'm actually going to be adding 1.5 to 2 cups of milk, and I'm just adding a little bit at a time, just trying to get that stirred through properly. And then once you add all your milk, it should thicken up, and it should be a very nice and creamy mixture. This was so creamy. I just loved how thick and delicious this was. So we have our rice here, and we also have some bread over here that I had made this morning. So this is homemade bread. And then you just literally put it right on top, and then right on top of your bread. It's almost like biscuits and gravy, but it has that cream of mushroom soup, so it makes it taste more of like a dinner, I guess. Okay, so which one of you wants to try what?
I want to try this.
Okay, they all want to try the bread. Grab a fork and let's taste it. Make sure you blow on it. Gravy stroganoff thing. Might be a little hot. What do you think? It's different, huh? It's not terrible. That's a big old bite, sir.
I do big old bite.
Be careful not to, oh my goodness.
What do you think? Okay, now I want you guys to try the rice. This is what it looks like. Hold on. This is what it looks like. Here we go. Okay. Babe girl, give it a try. Well, don't burn yourself. The rice is still kind of hot, isn't it? The bread wasn't hot. That's the difference. Yeah, real good. What you think? Okay, so which one is better? The bread. Okay, so definitely make it with bread. I was thinking that the rice would be better. I'm gonna try it. Definitely the bread. Mm-hmm. So definitely, if you can, have this with some homemade bread. Homemade bread is super inexpensive. So, and I will leave a link in my description box how to make some homemade bread. Definitely, it's both really, really good though. It's creamy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nice and creamy. It's almost like biscuits and gravy, but different.
You could taste the bread at first, and then you kind of taste the gravy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Up next are some beef and pepper rice bowls. So we're gonna need 1 onion, 1 red bell pepper, 1 yellow bell pepper, and 1 orange bell pepper. We're just gonna dice those up. We're gonna take it over to the stove, and I'm gonna put some bacon grease at the very bottom. Like I said earlier, I love to use bacon grease when I can. So that's what I'm going to be using to make sure that these vegetables get nice and cooked through. So I'm just going to place all these vegetables right on there, and I'm going to let them cook for probably about 3 to 5 minutes. They don't have to be fully cooked, but for the most part they need to be cooked. And so I'm just going to give that a good stir. And then once those have been cooking for probably about 3 to 5 minutes, then I'm going to go ahead and add the ground beef and get that nice and cooked through. Okay, now that the ground beef is cooked, I'm going to go ahead and drain off any excess grease because there's going to be a lot of grease with all that bacon grease and everything. So you definitely want to make sure to get rid of all of that. And then I'm going to bring it back and put it right back into our pan. Now we're going to add a 1/2 cup of soy sauce, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, and that's it. That's all that we need for this meal. I'm just going to go ahead and give that a good stir and let this simmer for just another couple minutes, and then it is done. I just made some rice in the Instant Pot, and then I put some like mozzarella cheese right on top of that. But look at this, guys. So good. It was delicious. My whole family liked it. Even my kids, which aren't typically pepper fans, they really enjoyed this meal as well. This is just such a great meal, and it can stretch even further. You don't have to put as much beef as I did. Next is poor man husband casserole. So we need 1 pound of ground beef or sausage. I'm just using sausage since it's cheaper. I'm going to go ahead and ground that up until it's nice and cooked through. While that's going, I'm also going to cook up 8 ounces of egg noodles. And then just kind of let that cook while you're making your hamburger mixture. I need 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1 tablespoon of garlic. And then I'm just going to give that a good stir. I just want to get that nice and cooked through, get that garlic cooked. So you just want to cook that for just about a minute. And then we're going to add 2 cans of tomato sauce. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give that a good stir, getting that tomato sauce cooked with that ground beef. I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar, giving that another stir. And then we're going to add 1 cup of sour cream, and you can also add a whole block of cream cheese. That would make it more creamy, which is definitely what I like to have. I love like the red sauce with like this creamy texture to it. It's like one of my favorite ways. If I'm going to have spaghetti, I love like the cream cheese version of spaghetti. It's just so good. By then your egg noodles should be done, so we're going to go ahead and get those egg noodles stirred in with that mixture. And I'm being like super careful because my pan's about to overflow. Next, I have a 9x13 pan, and I'm just going to place that right on top. I want to make sure that that's nice and level, nice and even. And then we're just going to put some cheddar cheese right on top of that. The recipe calls for about 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese, or sharp cheddar cheese would be perfect. And then we're going to place this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. This is what it comes out to be. So good, super, super cheesy. This made a delicious poor man meal. I like to have it with a little bit of bread. We also had it with some peas. I just really enjoy having peas. Next is Texas hash. So to our saucepan, I'm going to go ahead and add just a couple tablespoons of oil. I'm using the last bit that I have in this container. And then I'm going to dice up a whole onion and just place that right into our saucepan. I'm going to stir that around and let that cook for just a couple minutes until it has softened just a little bit. Okay, now once they've softened just a bit, I'm going to go ahead and add 1 pound of ground beef. I'm going to go ahead and chop that up, getting it nice and cooked through. Make sure it's nice and brown. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and add a tablespoon of garlic, giving it a little bit more of a flavor. We're not adding too many ingredients in this meal, so you want to make sure that you add a lot of seasonings and definitely garlic to make it more flavorful, more enjoyable to enjoy. I also need 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of paprika, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, giving that a good stir. Getting all of those flavors well combined. And then we need 1/2 cup of rice, getting that stirred through as well. Once that rice is combined properly, we're going to add 1 cup of water, 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, or regular tomatoes is fine too, and then 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then I'm going to go ahead and give that another good stir. And then we're going to put the lid on and let that simmer on a medium to low heat for about 20 minutes. Once the 20 minutes is up, we're going to go ahead and give that another good stir, just making sure that rice is cooked through. And then you're going to want about 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese, or Colby Jack cheese is fine too. I just had this sliced cheese, so I'm just trying to get rid of it. It's been in my fridge for a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that well combined. All right, and then once your cheese has melted, that is it. Your dinner is ready to eat. I just served this with some vegetables. I think we had corn with this, and then we also had some like sliced bread to make it super budget friendly.
Okay, this is everything we're gonna need for this poor man's meal. So I have some bread. You guys can use just regular bread that you get from the store. I just made some homemade bread. I make homemade bread all the time. It's just better. It tastes better, and it's just better for us, and it's cheaper. So I do a lot of homemade bread, but you guys definitely do not have to. I'm going to need 1 pound of ground beef, and then 2 things of gravy mix. And then I'm going to need some potatoes, because I'm basically just making some mashed potatoes. And then I'm going to make like this, it's called a Manhattan beef. So I'm going to be making some Manhattan beef, and then we're going to have it like over bread. So let's get started.
So the thing I need to get started on first is getting some mashed potatoes going. So I want to make sure I have about 6 medium-sized potatoes. I just dice them up and put them in this pot. And then while that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my ground beef. So I just need 1 pound of ground beef, getting that chopped up, cooked through. And then we will drain off any excess grease. And then now I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 packets of my gravy mixes. And then once I add those gravy mixes, I'm going to go ahead and give that a good stir, and it's going to thicken up immediately. So you're also going to need some type of liquid to kind of thin it out. So I just did 3/4 cup of water to start off with, and then I ended up adding another 3/4 cup to thicken it up. because when I started stirring it, it just kept thickening up so much that I just wanted it a little bit more on the runny side. You guys don't have to do that. If you like it kind of thicker, that's totally fine, but I wanted it more of like a gravy mix than just kind of like chunky ground beef, I guess. So how I make my mashed potatoes is just a little bit of butter or a lot of bit of butter. Actually, the more butter, the better. And then I'll do evaporated milk, and then I'll do salt and pepper, and that's it. I like to use my electric mixer just because I do not want to sit there and mash them up by hand. That takes forever, and it's just a lot of work. So I just find it easier and more efficient by using my electric mixer.
I'm going to take my piece of bread and I'm going to put some mashed potatoes just directly on top of that. And then I'm going to take some of our beef and spread that out. Just like that. And you don't need like a whole lot of beef. And that's what we're having. That is our poor man's meal. Bud, give me your honest review. What do you think of it?
That's actually really
It's good. He was very skeptical at first, so I'm glad you like it. What do you think? Good stuff? What do you think of it, Addie? You actually like it?
Help me.
How do you like it? Okay. I decided to pair it with some corn and then just have, this poor man's, I don't even know what it's called, Manhattan beef. Yeah, poor man Manhattan beef with some corn.
Now we're going to be making another version of Sloppy Joe Casserole. This one is a little bit more on the easy button side. So we're going to need 1 pound of ground beef, and I'm just going to put that at the very bottom of my Dutch oven. I love using this. It's like the Pioneer Woman one. I love it because it's like an easy cleanup. So if you guys like an easy cleanup, please give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below what is your favorite type of Dutch oven. I love this one just because it's simple and it's an easy cleanup. We're also going to add 1/2 cup of onions, and we're going to stir that together with our ground beef. And then we're just going to let that cook through, and then we're going to add 1 can of petite diced tomatoes. It doesn't have to be petite, I just had that on hand. We're also going to add 2.5 cups of chicken broth, 1 can of Sloppy Joe mix. I like to use like the thick and chunky manwich sandwich one. Giving that a good stir, and then we're going to put the lid on and just let that simmer for about 15 minutes. Once it comes to just a very slight boil, we're going to put in our bow tie noodles. I have 12 ounces of bow tie noodles, which comes out to be about perfect. I'm just going to smother those noodles to make sure they're all covered. And then I'm going to put the lid back on, and we're going to turn up the heat just a bit. I want it to be like a medium to low heat. Just to make sure that the noodles are just on a simmer. And then once the noodles have been cooking for about 15 minutes, we're going to add 1 can of corn and 2 cups of cheddar cheese. And then we're going to give that another really good stir. And I'm also going to turn down the heat so that it's not up so high, and we don't want it to really cook. We're just wanting it to melt. And that's it. Once it thickens up a bit, you are done. This is ready to go. I like to serve it with some bread, with maybe like a little bit of vegetables. It does have corn in there, but a salad would be really good with this as well. This was a really good meal for my family. They all really enjoyed this meal. Now we're going to be making chili mac, which the way I made it is a little bit more on the simple version of how I would make chili to begin with. The first thing I'm going to do is add in our sausage. Like I said, I love sausage with chili, and it's just so cost effective as well. So I'm just taking my sausage, and I think my pan was up on the heat just a little bit too high, so it was like starting to like burn as soon as I put it in there. So I'm trying to like scrape the bottom of that pan as well. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. I seem to do it way too often, especially ever since I've been videoing. It's just kind of hard to get everything ready to go on time. Okay, so now I have my sausage all cooked through. I add 1 packet of chili seasoning mix. That's actually not my favorite one, but it's very budget friendly. The one at Winco I think is like 40 cents or something like that. So it's really cost effective, very budget friendly. We have some tomato paste. I'm only going to add half of the thing, so about 3 ounces of tomato paste, and then 1 can of basically Rotel. It's just a green chili and tomato mixture along with 2 cups of water. And then we're just going to give that a really good stir, getting that tomato paste just really stirred through. So it's going to take a little bit longer just to make sure that that tomato paste is nice and smooth. And so now we're going to let that cook for just a little bit. You just want it to come to a slight simmer. And then we're going to add 1.5 cups of elbow macaroni noodles. And then we're going to put the lid on and then let that cook for about 15 minutes. Once it's done cooking, we're going to take the lid off and put in about 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese and let that melt through. Once it thickens up a bit, your dinner is done. You are ready to eat and have dinner on the table. This would be good with like a salad and some bread, or you can just have it by itself. So delicious.
Okay, this is the ingredients that we're going to need for today's poor man meal. So I have just like a little bit of bread, so I'm going to make a couple sandwiches from this, but we're just going to be making some barbecue chicken sandwiches, like a grilled cheese style. I had this in my crock pot all morning on high for probably about 4 hours. And so basically just like rotisserie style chicken. I'm going to shred this up. And then I'm going to cut up some bread, and then the remaining that I'm going to need, I'm just going to use some sandwich bread. And then we're going to put some mozzarella cheese on top of it. I'm going to mix the chicken in with some barbecue sauce. We're going to have some amazing grilled cheese, barbecue grilled cheese sandwiches for a poor man meal today. So let's get started. I'm going to shred up this chicken.
Okay, now that I have all my chicken shred up, I'm just going to put some barbecue sauce just right in there. I'm just going to eyeball it. There's not like a specific amount. Some people don't like a lot. Some people do. I am more on the side of I like a little bit more than maybe the average person, and my husband is not. So, it just kind of whatever you guys prefer. And I'm just going to mix that in till it's nice and good. We're going to make some sandwiches. So you're just going to put some butter on one side of the bread. And then I want to have this extra cheesy. So I'm going to put some cheese right on top of that. And then kind of very carefully just put my barbecue chicken right on top of that. This would be really good with some onions. Barbecue chicken and like onions go so well together. And then I just put some cheese right on top of that. And flipped over, made a grilled cheese, basically, with some chicken in it, and called it good. This is what it looks like, you guys, so good. This is even better when you use homemade bread, but I know not everybody is going to want to make homemade bread, but even like a thicker slice of bread would be even better with this. Even like some quesadillas, making this with like tortillas instead of bread is delicious as well. Next, we're doing sausage mac and cheese. So I need 1 pound of sausage, and we're just going to cook that up until it's nice and cooked through. Now that that's been cooked, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and then 8 ounces of elbow macaroni noodles, 2.5 cups of water, and then 1/2 cup of either half and half or milk. Also 1 can of diced tomatoes, and then we're going to give that a really good stir, getting that well combined. All right, and then once that has been cooking for about 10 to 15 minutes until those noodles are nice and cooked through, then we're going to add 1 cup of cheese. I just did like this Colby Jack cheddar cheese blend. And then I'm just going to mix that through. The cheese should help it get nice and thick. And that's it. You guys, this dinner is ready to go. I consider this kind of like a hamburger helper, but even better since it's more homemade. And you can pair this with bread or just have it by itself. Next is ground beef and taters. So to a skillet, I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. And then I had cut up about 3 medium-sized potatoes. I just finely diced them. And then I'm just going to cook them up in my skillet. For seasonings, I'm going to add quite a bit of seasoning salt, or you guys can just add regular salt is fine too. I love using seasoning salt for my potatoes though. And then we're going to use a little bit of paprika. We're also going to use a little bit of pepper. I'm just going to sprinkle that in. Those are about a teaspoon each. The pepper is about half a teaspoon. I don't want too much pepper or else my kids are not going to eat it. I'm going to give that a really good stir and just let that cook for probably about 10 to 15 minutes just so those taters are nice and soft. While that's cooking, to a saucepan. I actually love putting my ground beef in like a pan like this just because it's kind of easier to smash up using my meat masher. I'm also going to add half an onion that I had diced up. We're going to mash that together, get that nice and cooked through. Okay, so by now my potatoes should be ready to go, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball and make sure that they're nice and soft. My meat should be done by that time, so I'm just going to add my meat right on top of there. Make sure that you do drain your grease, and then I added 3/4 of a can of corn to this mixture. So good, guys. Also, another thing that would be really good with this meal is some like cheese to top it off, but I know that cheese is a little bit more expensive, so if you don't have that in your budget, that's totally fine too. I just put like just a little bit on top of mine just as like a topping. This is so good. I was surprised that my kids really did enjoy this meal. Up next, we're going to be making a creamy Italian pasta. So to a medium saucepan, I'm just going to go ahead and add 10 ounces of rotini noodles. And then I'm going to go ahead and get started on some ground beef in a larger pan. And then I also diced up 1 whole onion that I'm going to go ahead and throw in with my ground beef and get that cooked. Now I'm going to go ahead and add half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and then I have this jar of ragu simply marinara sauce that I'm just going to add the whole thing, and I'm also going to put probably about 1/4 cup of water in it just to get the remaining of the marinara sauce out. And then I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of garlic, giving that a really good stir. I'm going to add 1 cup of beef broth, giving that another really good stir. One cup of half and half, or you can do milk, or you can also do heavy whipping cream. And then I'm going to give that another good stir, and that's going to thicken up just a bit. So just let that simmer for just a couple minutes, and then we're going to add our rotini noodles right back in there. Give that another really good stir as well. And then that's it. After letting those noodles set for just a couple minutes, it should thicken up just a bit. And then you can put like a little bit of mozzarella cheese right on top of that. This was one of my favorite meals out of this whole video. I loved it. Up next is some spaghetti soup, which is kind of like an egg drop soup with spaghetti noodles. So to a large soup pan or Dutch oven, you're going to need 3 tablespoons of butter, and you're just going to go ahead and melt that down. We need 2 medium carrots that are chopped up, and then a whole onion that you diced up as well. Giving that a good stir, getting those vegetables nice and cooked through until they're nice and soft. And then off to the side, we're going to be cracking 5 eggs into a medium bowl, and then we're going to stir them up. Once they're good and mixed through properly, we're just going to put them to the side, and by then our vegetables should be ready to go. So I need 6 cups of water. And and then 12 ounces of spaghetti noodles that I just broke in half. And then once those noodles have been cooking and they're nice and al dente, we're just going to go ahead and add our egg mixture right to it, and it's going to immediately start cooking, so you want to give it a really good mix through. We're also going to add a tablespoon of parsley. Some fresh parsley would be better, but I just typically don't have fresh herbs on hand. And then I'm going to give that another good stir, letting this cook for probably just another couple minutes, and that is it. Our meal here is done. You just want to make sure that those eggs are cooked through. There's nothing worse than having uncooked eggs in your soup. And then you can top this with some Parmesan cheese. I decided to add half a cup of Parmesan cheese to the mixture, or you can just put it on top. It's whatever you prefer. And then just a little bit of pepper is all that it needs. So I put a little bit of pepper in it and mixed it up. So good. This is something that I would not typically make, but it was actually really good. I was very surprised by this meal. Up next are some corn dog muffins. So to our medium bowl, we're going to add 2 boxes of Jiffy cornbread mix. And then we're just going to make this how the package says. So we're going to need 2 eggs and then also 2/3 a cup of milk. We're just going to place it in our bowl, stir it together until it is nice and creamy. This is a meal that I like to make for my kids, like a quick and easy lunch, something different to do instead of always having sandwiches or leftovers or just plain old mac and cheese. I like to do something a little bit different, and it's very budget friendly, and my kids end up loving it so much. It's definitely kid friendly. So once your mixture is nice and smooth, you're just going to take a package of hot dogs, and I just quartered them and then I put them to the side. You're going to need a cupcake pan, and I just go ahead and spray it. You definitely want to make sure that they are sprayed really good, or else they are going to stick. So I just took like a cookie scoop and scooped just a little bit into these pans. I just wanted them until they were about 1/3 of the way full, and then we're going to put our hot dogs just right on top of that. And I just wanted to top it a little bit since I had quite a bit of cornbread mixture left. So here I am just putting it right on top of that, and then I'm just going to kind of go around it, and some of them needed like another hot dog. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do 1 or 2, so I ended up doing 2 of them. I think it'd be better if I just cut up the hot dogs a little bit smaller and added like a little handful. That would be good too. This is what they look like after they cooked in the oven at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes, and we just paired it with some mac and cheese and some applesauce for my kids. They ended up loving it. I ended up having some because I thought they were so good, and I just love corn dogs in general, so corn dog muffins are good as well. Now I'm going to be making some ramen carbonara, so I'm going to need 4 strips of bacon that I went ahead and cut up small pieces into like little bits, and now I'm just going to go ahead and put that on the stove and let that cook while I'm making some ramen noodles. So to my pot, I'm going to add 4 packages of ramen noodles, and I'm just going to let them cook until they are al dente. Now that they're done cooking, I'm just going to go ahead and strain off all the water, and I'm just going to leave them in the colander for just a little bit until I am done with my bacon. So now that my bacon is almost done, I'm going to go ahead and add a tablespoon of garlic, get that stirred through, and I'm just going to let that cook for about another minute. And then after the minute's up, I'm going to go ahead and add our ramen noodles right back to our pan, and I'm going to try to get that stirred through as possible as I can, get all that bacon in with that ramen noodles. I also added some olive oil because it was starting to stick to the pan. I also added 2 eggs that I went ahead and stirred up. I'm also going to add about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. I actually ran out, so I used just a little bit of mozzarella just to kind of make up for it. You guys can use whichever you prefer. I think Parmesan would go perfectly with this meal. I'm going to go ahead and get that stirred through. I'm going to make sure that those eggs are getting nice and cooked through, because you do not want you do not want uncooked eggs in this. So make sure that it's getting cooked through. And then I just kind of stirred through. I also added just a little bit of parsley just to kind of give it a color, also to give it a really good flavor, and that's it. After the eggs were done cooking, your meal is done. This is so delicious. I loved it. Of course, anything with bacon is going to taste amazing. My kids really enjoyed it. They just like to have plain old ramen noodles, but they actually really enjoyed this ramen carbonara. Okay, so I wanted to end the video on something sweet, so I wanted to do a strawberry white chocolate cookies. These are amazing. So I need 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, or any type of oil is fine. And then we're gonna crack 2 eggs into this bowl, and we're just gonna give it a good stir. Literally 4 ingredients to these cookies, and trust me, you guys, these are awesome. They end up being really, really thick. So definitely you want to give this recipe a good try. So once you have all those ingredients mixed through, then you're going to add a cup of white chocolate chips, and then you're going to give that another good stir. And it's pretty thick, just so you guys know. I mean, it's cookie dough, so of course it's going to be a little bit more on the thick side. And this strawberry cake mix does have like some sprinkles in it, so if you guys see some sprinkles, that's what it is. And then we're going to get a cookie sheet and just line it. And I like my cookies a little bit more bigger. Yeah, and so I use like more of like a bigger cookie scoop. I put this in the oven at 350 for about 10 minutes, and this is what they turned out to be. So moist, so delicious, like one of the best cookies that you'll ever have. There's so many different varieties that you can pick and choose from when using cake mix. Cake mix cookies are the bomb.com, you guys. I have tons of other videos just like this on my channel, so make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!